you. That's a very kind introduction. Oh, help with it if we can use the technology. Kia ora koutou. I whakapapa to kai tahu, nai tahu, and specifically to Otago marae. But I was born and raised in Canterbury, so I want to very hard act to follow actually, but I wanted to take you on a bit of a journey of the type of research that they do and the influences on that research. And being Canterbury born and bred, I'm very attached to our braided rivers, and I think they make a really nice metaphor for how we weave together different aspects of our knowledge and our knowledge systems, and why diversity is important to those braided rivers, because braided rivers are constantly changing and new influences completely change the direction of the little rivulets. And so my own river is made up of the Te Ao Māori viewpoint that I was raised with, my education, my family values, the University of Canterbury, the other universities where I've worked, Massey, University of Pretoria, Cambridge, a whole range of different places. And each of these form these little rivulets in my braided river. But I wanted to mention that underlying the braided river is something else really important, and that's the individual pebbles that make up the river. And each of those individuals play a key role in maintaining those channels within the braided river. And of course, the braided river itself also influences the pebbles. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the individuals that make up the ecosystem and how they influence the ecology, and how they in turn are influenced by the situations they find themselves in. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey to how this little girl from Canterbury came to be so overwhelmed to be standing in front of you all here today. And it is in a large part due to my wonderful parents. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional. My father passed away last year, and he was the first in his family to finish primary school. So he valued education, and I'm here because of him. Also my wonderful mother, and I bring with me treasures, tonga from my father, so I'm carrying him with me today. Oh, excuse me. Didn't mean to get emotional. It's all a bit overwhelming, this whole situation. I feel whelmed. And I'm going to introduce you to individuals by introducing two individuals who are really important to me. These are my two children back when they were lovely and liked me. Yes, very dated. They're now teenagers. And what's important with any individual is that we have so when we're dealing with individuals, they have a parent. I am one of their parents, and I have my father. You can see the family resemblance. We're the ones with the shorter ears. My father has a father, and we whakapapa back to his grandmother. So my children share this line, and they carry with them those genetic elements and those experiences which cross generations. But it's more complicated than that. I have a wonderful father. This is my husband, Sean, as a little baby. And of course, he has those same lines. My mother has the same lines. We have this complicated web of genetics influencing all the individuals in a population. And they have the same family similarity. My two children, again, the ones with the shorter ears. And they have shared experiences. So my children were born in South Africa, and they spent their early years there. They then spent some years as I shifted jobs in Australia. And they've each developed traits that share some similarities with me. My daughter, if you can't quite make that out, that's a massive spider the size of her head, loves spiders. And my son, like his father, is a musician. But to put that in a biological perspective, that's the interaction between their genes and the environment. And this is sort of the traditional nature versus nurture, but the evolutionary synthesis recognises the interaction between genes and the environment. And that interaction starts even before they're born. So my two children have different chromosomes, so their sex chromosomes are different. So we have a male and a female, and this influences their gene expression and everything about their development. So actually the time you're most sexually dimorphic in your life is when you're a blastocyst. So just 16 to 32 cells, because 40% of your genes are upregulated in females because of the two X chromosomes. So actually your early trajectories are massively affected by your biology. And so the extended evolutionary synthesis also includes development and also the interactions. And I really like the modern, the extended synthesis, because this fits with my Te Ao Maui and Māori view, which is that everything is interconnected and they actually affect each other. So you can't just look at, you can't reductionize things down to their lowest levels, because everything interacts. So this we call, in a biological term, the extended evolutionary synthesis. And the really cool thing is it doesn't just apply to my children, it applies in biology as well. And so this is where my research has focused on the genes, environment, development, and all of their interactions. And I'm just going to give you some examples. So for example, some of the genetic work or related to inheritance work that we've looked at is looking at why something like a meerkat might evolve such a counterintuitive thing as cooperative breeding, where only a male and a female breed and everybody else helps them raise their offspring. We look at the environment. This is me in my happy environment, working in the field, doing field biology. And within the environment, we're talking about habitat, but also the influences of other species. So zebras have to be aware of things like lions. It's a very important influence. But really importantly, there's humans in the environment as well. And we also manage these species. So I'm not actually about to shoot any horses with anything except for contraceptives. So this is a contraceptive trial that we did on Kaimanawa horses. And then I've been really interested in the influence of conspecifics, so social bonding in non-human animals, which is important for things like equids, but also this is the world's happiest animal, the quokka. I'm also not harassing it here. That's a chocolate stick. They very much like chocolate, and you can do all sorts of stuff with a quokka if you have chocolate. And a lot of my more recent research is focused on development, and in particular maternal heritability through provisioning, protection. Interestingly, most mothers are more protective against conspecifics than they are even against predators. And prenatal development. So we've done a lot of work on what determines whether a mother conceives male or female conceptuses, and we're using that in endangered species like rhino, but also in production animals like these beautiful cows here. So if we can tweak the sex ratio, the animal ethics implications are quite massive. And then it gets really exciting to me when we tie all of that together in species management. And this is an accurate representation of a devil from my former student, David Hamilton. They have a windy end and a bitey end, but the real key bit of the devil is that they catch devil facial tumour disease. And if we can interfere and break some of these connections, that's how we can manage the species more effectively. Here in Aotearoa, we're also looking at how diversity and plasticity influence uncatchable behaviour in possums. So this is a possum learning to open dog toys, and turns out they can learn from conspecifics without actually interacting with the toy. So social learning occurs in possums, which has massive implications for their management. So, winding up, because Dave's about to stand up and send me off, I hope that I've convinced you that not only is the braided river important, but the underlying stones that make that up and the interaction between those are really important. Again, I'm humbled to be here. I'm quite overwhelmed by the situation, so thank you. And thank you to all my collaborators and students who've been on this journey with me. So, thank you.
Well, thank you, Elissa, for that tour de force. Does anybody have a question before I pipe in?
Damn it.
Come on.
Somebody saved me from Dave. Yay.
I was kind of interested. Are you saying that you can now alter sex ratios in livestock, for example?
Yeah, so we've done it in mice, and we changed the maternal environment just post-conception. So in that same early blastocyst period, and it's related to the 2X chromosomes again. So we can tweak the glucose levels, and we can change the probability. So not absolutely, we can change the probability, and we've been looking at that in cows now as well.
Come on, I know you're thirsting to ask another question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's part of what we look at because, we used to think that you're born and that's when you start interacting with the environment, but you start way back when, and actually some of our work suggests way back when in males as well, before the sperm is even ejaculated, you've got effects happening. And so that epigenetics is one of those. So we've got developmental effects and epigenetic effects, but yeah, absolutely, really important.
I'm going to dig back into my golden vault of treasured memories. Didn't you work on giraffes at some stage?
I did.
I want to hear about giraffes, and there wasn't a single picture of a giraffe. Tell us what you did with them. They're big animals.
Yeah, so we're looking at reasons why giraffes do pretty well in protected areas, large protected areas, and not anywhere else. We're looking at social bonding and different ecological influences. It turns out that the male giraffes are quite disruptive to females. So if you don't have large enough areas where females can get away from males, the population starts to decline. Sorry, that's going to be really unpopular answer. But that is, and then we worked on conservation.
What sort of social structure do they have? Is it like haremic or what?
Fantastic.
Tell me something about giraffes. How do they behave?
So everyone knows they're famously silent, right? They're not actually. They probably communicate infrasonically. We just can't hear it. And again, we thought that they were asocial. They come together, they split apart. And so again, famously asocial. But now we think actually they see the world differently, not surprisingly. They see the world differently to how we do. And they actually appear like they're in actually consistent social groups. We just haven't measured it. We've used human eyes to measure it rather than giraffe eyes. So actually have strong alliances between females, and some evidence as well recently that the males are reproductively cyclic like elephants. So they go into periods of muss, and that's when they're really not particularly, females don't particularly like being around the males when they're in that aggressive muss period, or equivalent of muss. Does that answer your giraffe questions?
It does. Awesome. And thank you very much for that tour de force of your life. The kids.